Have you ever wondered why some people seem to achieve the impossible while others struggle with even the simplest challenges? What is it that separates those who climb mountains, defy the odds, or transform their lives from those who remain stuck in the same cycle? Could it be something within us that we're not yet aware of? Imagine this. A monk sits quietly in a remote monastery. He has no wealth, no modern tools, no connections. Yet, through sheer focus and the teachings of his mind, he builds a bridge, not a physical one, but a spiritual and emotional connection that brings people together and transforms lives. If he can do this with nothing but his wisdom, what's stopping us from achieving the so-called impossible in our own lives? Let's take an example from our daily life. Think about a child learning to walk. At first, it seems impossible. Standing up is hard, balancing is harder, and walking feels unthinkable. But with every fall, the child learns. With every attempt, the impossible becomes possible. This process mirrors what Buddhism teaches us. Small, mindful steps can conquer the greatest obstacles. Welcome to Wisdom Woven, your gateway to unlocking hidden truths and achieving greatness in your life. Today, we're diving deep into the idea of doing impossible things, something that might seem far-fetched but is entirely within reach when approached with the right mindset. Before we begin, I want to ask you for a small favor. There are so many views on this channel, but only 0.2% of viewers actually subscribe. If you find value in what we're sharing today, please take a moment to like, comment, share, and subscribe to our channel. It's quick, it's simple, and it helps us continue to bring you life-changing insights. Now, let's talk about the impossible. Most people see obstacles and immediately give up, thinking, it's too hard, or I could never do that. But Buddhism tells us something different. It teaches that limitations are often illusions, shadows created by our own doubts and fears. These illusions keep us trapped, convinced that we can't go further, when in reality, the path is open if we're willing to walk it. Achieving the impossible starts with a single thought, the belief that it is possible. This belief is like a seed. When planted in the fertile soil of determination and watered with consistent effort, it begins to grow. Slowly, steadily, it pushes through the surface, breaking barriers you didn't even know existed. But belief alone isn't enough. You must pair it with action, mindful, deliberate steps toward your goal. Buddhism emphasizes mindfulness for this very reason. When you are fully present, when you focus your energy on each step instead of the overwhelming size of the task, you realize that progress is always within reach. For instance, think about the lotus flower. It grows in muddy water, a place where nothing beautiful seems possible. Yet, it blooms with grace and purity, untouched by the dirt around it. This is the essence of doing the impossible. It's not about perfect conditions or an easy path. It's about rising above challenges with courage and clarity. So, what's stopping you from achieving your impossible? Doubt? Fear? Lack of resources? These are all natural, but they don't define your potential. Buddhism teaches that potential is limitless. The only limits are the ones we place on ourselves. Through this series, we'll explore the principles that can help you break free from those limits. From finding inner strength to embracing the power of impermanence, we'll uncover how to turn obstacles into stepping stones and transform impossibilities into achievements. The first step is to change your perspective. Look at challenges not as walls, but as doors waiting to be opened. Recognize that every great achievement in history, from the discovery of fire to walking on the moon, was once considered impossible. The difference lies in the belief and the effort of those who dared to try. Stay with us as we continue this journey into the heart of the impossible. You'll discover techniques rooted in ancient wisdom, practical steps for daily life, and stories that will inspire you to reach beyond your current limits. Together, we'll unlock a path to greatness that you never thought possible. Don't forget, great things start with small actions. If this message resonates with you, take a moment to reflect, apply what you've learned, and share it with others who might need it. And of course, make sure to subscribe to Wisdom Woven for more powerful insights like this one. Unleashing the mind's limitless potential. In the quiet stillness of the mind, there exists a space beyond all limitations. It is a space where anything is possible, where every obstacle becomes an opportunity, and where the impossible fades away. The mind, when fully awakened and trained, holds within it an infinite potential to create, to solve, and to rise above every challenge. The problem is not the world around us, but the world within us, the thoughts, beliefs, and stories we tell ourselves about what can or cannot be done. To achieve the impossible, one must first realize that the only limits we face are the ones created by our own minds. This realization is the key to unlocking the true potential that lies dormant within us. Just as a bird is not confined by the sky, a person is not confined by their circumstances once they understand the power of their own mind. Think of the mind as a garden. In the beginning, the garden may be full of weeds, thoughts of doubt, fear, and limitations. These weeds choke the growth of your true potential. But with mindfulness, patience, and a focused effort, these weeds can be uprooted, leaving space for the seeds of possibility to grow. Every thought you think is a seed being planted in the garden of your mind. Choose wisely. Nurture thoughts of possibility, strength, and courage, and watch them bloom into the fruits of success and transformation. To unleash this power, you must first quiet the mind. In Buddhism, the practice of meditation is the key to achieving this clarity. When the mind is calm, free from distractions and noise, it becomes a perfect vessel for creativity and insight. In the stillness, you begin to see things as they truly are, not as you imagine them to be. You begin to realize that the walls you've built around yourself are not made of stone, but of your own fears and misconceptions. And once you see that, you can begin to dismantle them, one brick at a time. This practice of stillness is not about escaping from the world, but about seeing the world clearly. When you are still, you can observe your thoughts without becoming entangled in them. You can see the seeds of doubt, fear, and self-limitation as they arise, and you can choose not to water them. Instead, you can choose to focus on thoughts that are empowering, thoughts that align with your highest potential. The Buddha spoke of the importance of right intention, aligning your thoughts with your highest values and goals. If you intend to achieve something extraordinary, you must first believe it is possible. If your intention is clouded with doubt or fear, then your actions will be clouded as well. The mind follows intention. If your intention is to succeed, to achieve the impossible, then every thought, word, and action will move in that direction. But how do you cultivate the right intention? How do you transform your mind from one that limits you to one that empowers you? The answer lies in mindfulness. Mindfulness is the practice of being fully present in each moment, without judgment. It is the practice of observing your thoughts and emotions without getting caught up in them. When you are mindful, you can see the stories you tell yourself for what they are, just stories. And you can choose to tell a new story, one that aligns with your dreams and aspirations. Consider this. Every time you encounter a challenge, your mind has a choice. You can react with fear and doubt, believing that the challenge is too great to overcome. Or you can respond with wisdom and clarity, knowing that every challenge is an opportunity for growth. The difference between these two responses is rooted in your mindfulness. The more you practice mindfulness, the more you train your mind to respond wisely, with clarity and courage. But mindfulness alone is not enough. To achieve the impossible, you must also cultivate persistence. The path to greatness is not a straight line. It is filled with twists, turns, and obstacles. There will be times when you feel discouraged, when it seems like progress is slow or non-existent. But it is in these moments that persistence becomes your greatest ally. In Buddhism, we are taught the importance of right effort. Right effort is the balanced effort to move toward your goal with both energy and patience. It is not about rushing or forcing things to happen, but about moving steadily forward, one step at a time. With each step, you are building momentum. With each step, you are reinforcing your belief in the possibility of success. Imagine a river flowing towards the ocean. The water does not rush, nor does it stop. It simply flows, carving its path through rocks and obstacles. The river does not force its way, but it is persistent. It keeps moving, keeps flowing, and eventually, it reaches its destination. This is the kind of persistence you need to achieve the impossible. Move forward steadily, with patience and determination, and nothing can stand in your way. As you continue to cultivate the right intention and the right effort, you will notice something remarkable happening. Your fears and doubts will begin to dissipate. The more you persist, the more you see the results of your actions, and the more your belief in yourself will grow. This is how the impossible becomes possible, not through sudden bursts of magic, but through steady, mindful effort. At the same time, you must remember to stay flexible. The path you envision may not always be the path you walk. Life is unpredictable, and obstacles will arise that you did not foresee. But when you are mindful and persistent, you will have the wisdom to adapt to these changes. Flexibility is not about giving up on your goals, but about finding new ways to achieve them when the original path becomes blocked. Think of the bamboo tree. It grows tall and strong, but it is flexible in the wind. It does not break, but bends with the wind, adapting to its surroundings. In the same way, you must bend with the winds of life. When challenges arise, you must remain flexible, adapting your approach while staying true to your ultimate goal. The mind is the key to unlocking the impossible. It is not a matter of physical strength or external resources, but of mental strength and clarity. When you align your thoughts with your deepest intentions, when you persist in the face of obstacles, and when you stay flexible in the midst of change, you unlock a power within you that is limitless. But there is one more aspect to consider: the power of compassion. Compassion is the energy that fuels your journey. When you approach your goals with compassion, not only for yourself but for others, you tap into a deeper source of motivation. Compassion allows you to stay connected to your values, to the bigger picture, and to the people you are working to serve. It reminds you that your success is not just for you, but for the benefit of others as well. In Buddhism, compassion is seen as one of the highest virtues. It is the foundation of all right action, the energy that drives you to do good in the world. When you cultivate compassion, you move through life with a sense of purpose and service. This sense of purpose gives you the strength to face the impossible, because you know that your efforts are not just for personal gain, but for the well-being of all. As you move forward on your journey, remember that the impossible is not something that happens in a single moment. It is the result of many moments, many steps, and many choices. Each thought, each action, each moment of mindfulness adds up. When you look back, you will see that the impossible was never truly impossible at all. It was simply a series of steps, each one taken with clarity, persistence, and compassion. So, what can you do today to begin unlocking your limitless potential? The first step is to believe in it. The second step is to practice mindfulness, quieting your mind and aligning your thoughts with your highest goals. The third step is to persist, moving steadily toward your dreams, no matter how difficult the path may seem. And finally, stay flexible, adapt to the challenges that arise, and cultivate compassion for yourself and others along the way. This is the way to achieve the impossible. It is not about waiting for the perfect moment or the perfect conditions. It is about acting with the mind of a master, clear, focused, and unwavering. And with each step, you will find that the impossible becomes not only possible but inevitable, breaking through the illusions of limitations. In the journey to do the impossible, we must first understand a simple but profound truth. Limitations are illusions. They are not real, yet we accept them as though they are solid barriers. These illusions often come in the form of fear, doubt, or the belief that we are not capable of achieving what we truly desire. But as we dive deeper into the essence of reality, we begin to see that these so-called limits are not obstacles. They are simply the mind's way of keeping us from growing. The mind, like a restless monkey jumping from branch to branch, tends to create these illusions to protect us from discomfort. It tells us that the task is too difficult, that we are not strong enough, that others are more talented, or that time is running out. It convinces us that there is a limit to what we can achieve. But this is not the truth. In reality, the only limits are the ones we create within our own minds. When we see beyond these false barriers, we uncover a vast and infinite potential within ourselves. Think of a river flowing through a narrow valley. At first glance, it may appear as though the water is trapped, confined by the walls of the valley. But if you look closely, you will notice that the river always finds a way. It carves new paths, reshapes the earth around it, and continues to flow regardless of the obstacles it faces. This is how the mind works when we break through our limitations. Once we let go of the idea that we are limited, we begin to see the endless possibilities that were always there, just waiting for us to notice. In Buddhism, We are taught to observe the nature of our thoughts without judgment. When we do this, we start to recognize that the thoughts that limit us are just that, thoughts. They are not facts, they are not truths, and they do not define who we are. We are more than the thoughts that come and go in our minds. Just as a cloud passes through the sky without changing the sky itself, so too can our thoughts pass without affecting our true nature. When we become aware of this, we can begin to separate ourselves from the illusions that hold us back. Consider the story of a man who wanted to climb a mountain. From the base, it seemed impossible. The peak was hidden behind clouds, and the path was steep and treacherous. But the man did not focus on the mountain as a whole. He simply took one step at a time. With each step, he focused on the ground beneath him, the rhythm of his breath, and the strength in his legs. Slowly, without realizing it, he reached the summit. The mountain had not changed. It was still steep and daunting. What had changed was his mind. He no longer saw the mountain as an insurmountable obstacle. He saw it as a challenge that he could overcome, one step at a time. This is the essence of breaking through limitations. It's not about removing obstacles from our path. It's about changing the way we see them. When we stop viewing challenges as walls, we begin to see them as opportunities for growth. Every obstacle becomes a chance to build resilience, to test our limits, and to expand our understanding of what is possible. The Buddha teaches us that suffering is a natural part of life, but it is not something to be feared or avoided. Suffering is a tool, a guide that points us toward our weaknesses, our attachments, and our fears. By embracing suffering instead of resisting it, we learn to transform it. The suffering we feel when faced with a challenge is not a sign that we cannot succeed. It is simply an indication that we are pushing beyond our comfort zone. And it is in this discomfort that true growth occurs. When we learn to face our limitations head-on, without fear or hesitation, we begin to see them for what they truly are. Opportunities to awaken. The mind may continue to create illusions, but through mindfulness and awareness, we can see through them. We can begin to understand that the limitations we believe in are not real. They are simply reflections of our fears and doubts. When we choose to look beyond these reflections, we tap into an inner strength that is limitless. Breaking through these illusions requires patience and practice. Just as a master craftsman hones his skill over years of diligent effort, so too must we refine our ability to see clearly and act without hesitation. Every time we challenge a limitation, we strengthen our capacity to break through the next one. This is not a process that happens overnight. But with each step, with each small victory, we become more attuned to the true nature of reality, and we grow closer to doing what once seemed impossible. One of the key teachings of Buddhism is the concept of non-attachment. In the context of breaking through limitations, non-attachment means not being attached to the idea of failure or success. When we attach ourselves to the outcome, we create fear and resistance. But when we focus on the process itself, on the simple act of doing, regardless of the outcome, we free ourselves from the illusions of failure and success. We see that both are temporary, fleeting experiences, and neither defines us. Consider the bamboo tree. For the first few years of its life, it grows underground. It seems as though nothing is happening, but beneath the surface, it is building a strong foundation. Then, suddenly, it shoots up, growing rapidly and towering above its surroundings. Its growth was not hindered by time, nor by the limitations of the earth. It simply grew at its own pace, without attachment to the idea of success or failure. This is how we must approach the impossible. We must trust in the process, knowing that growth happens in its own time, and that every step forward, no matter how small, is progress. As we continue on our path, it is important to remember that breaking through limitations does not mean we will not face difficulties. Challenges will arise, and obstacles will appear. But with each challenge, we become stronger. With each obstacle, we learn more about ourselves. And with each step we take, we come closer to realizing that the impossible is not something outside of us. It is something that lies within us, waiting to be uncovered. Through mindfulness and awareness, we can see that the limitations we face are not walls but doors. Behind these doors lie opportunities, growth, and transformation. It is only by stepping through these doors, by challenging our illusions and embracing the unknown, that we can begin to live the life we are truly capable of. The impossible is not beyond our reach. It is within us, waiting for us to see it. As we continue our journey, remember, the mind creates illusions, but the heart knows the truth. The heart knows that there is no limit to what we can achieve when we free ourselves from the illusions of fear, doubt, and limitation. It is only when we look beyond the surface, when we break through the barriers of our own making, that we begin to see the vast, limitless potential that lies within each of us. Mastering the art of patience and persistence. In the world around us, things happen quickly. We live in a time of instant gratification, where everything is just a click away. But when it comes to achieving something truly meaningful, the path is not so swift. It requires patience and persistence. These two qualities are the foundation upon which the impossible becomes possible. Think about the bamboo tree. It grows very slowly, but once it takes root, it can shoot up to extraordinary heights in just a matter of weeks. This growth, though fast in the later stages, is built on years of unseen work, roots quietly spreading deep under the earth. This is patience in action. What may appear slow or stagnant is actually a crucial period of growth, unseen by the world. Patience teaches us that all things unfold in their own time. Often, we feel like we're not making progress, that we're stuck. We want results immediately, and when they don't come, we think we're failing. But persistence is what carries us through those moments of doubt. It's the quiet determination that keeps us going, even when nothing seems to change. In Buddhism, we are reminded that every step forward, no matter how small, brings us closer to our goal. It's not about huge leaps. It's about the steady, consistent effort. The Buddha himself spent years in meditation, searching for enlightenment. His journey was not a quick one. He faced many challenges, doubts, and temptations, but he persisted, trusting that with time, clarity would come. In the same way, we must trust in the process. Sometimes, the most difficult part is simply to keep going, even when the end is not in sight. Patience doesn't mean doing nothing. It doesn't mean waiting passively for something to happen. True patience is active. It's about maintaining your effort and focus while trusting that the results will come when the time is right. Imagine you are planting a seed. Every day you water it, and every day you care for it. You don't dig it up every hour to check if it's growing, because you trust that, in time, it will sprout. The same is true for your dreams. You must tend to them with patience and faith. Persistence, too, is more than mere repetition. It is the ability to continue when you are met with challenges. There will be obstacles, doubts, fears, setbacks, but the key is to keep moving forward, even if the pace is slow. Think of the river, flowing over stones. The water doesn't stop just because it hits a rock. It moves around it, and with time, the constant flow wears down even the hardest of obstacles. In your own life, when you face difficulties, remember the river. Move forward, step by step, without allowing frustration to take hold. Each effort is not in vain. Just like the river, each action, no matter how small, is wearing down the obstacles that stand in your way. Over time, the path will become clearer, and the impossible will become possible. We also learn from the story of the tortoise and the hare. The hare, fast and confident, speeds ahead, but it loses sight of the long-term goal. The tortoise, slow and steady, continues its path without rushing. In the end, the tortoise wins because it maintained its persistence, while the hare's impatience led to its downfall. In life, it is not the speed at which we move that determines success, but the persistence to keep going, no matter how long it takes. When you practice patience and persistence, you also practice acceptance. Accept that the journey will take time, and that setbacks are not failures. They are simply part of the process. The Buddha taught that life is full of suffering, but through patience and perseverance, we can rise above that suffering. Patience allows us to see beyond our immediate frustrations and understand that every challenge has something to teach us. In Buddhism, there is the teaching of right effort. This doesn't mean pushing yourself to the limit all the time. It means finding the right balance, working consistently and mindfully while being gentle with yourself. You don't have to be perfect. You just need to keep moving forward, one step at a time. Right effort is about doing what you can, even when the outcome is uncertain, trusting that every action is contributing to your growth. Think of a potter shaping clay. The potter does not rush the process. Each turn of the wheel is deliberate. Even though the shape is not yet clear, the potter continues, shaping, refining, and perfecting the clay over time. This is the patience and persistence that allows something beautiful to emerge. When you are patient with yourself, you allow your dreams to be shaped by your efforts, just like the clay. Persistence also involves resilience. It's not just about pushing forward in the same direction. It's about adapting when necessary, learning from your mistakes, and bouncing back stronger each time. Life will not always go according to plan, but the ability to persist through change, to adjust your approach, and to keep going no matter what, is a true mark of strength. Sometimes, when faced with obstacles, we need to step back and reflect. This is where patience comes in. Patience allows us to gain clarity. It helps us to see beyond the immediate problem and understand the bigger picture. When you feel stuck, take a moment to breathe, reflect, and give yourself the space to think. Trust that the answers will come when the time is right. The journey of doing the impossible is not a sprint. It is a marathon. You must pace yourself, and you must trust that even when the progress is slow, you are still moving forward. The Buddha taught that the path to enlightenment is not immediate. It is a gradual process, requiring patience, effort, and the ability to persist through challenges. In the end, mastering the art of patience and persistence is about accepting the journey, no matter how long it takes. It is about learning to enjoy the process, even when the goal seems far away. With each step, you are growing stronger. With each challenge, you are becoming more capable. The impossible becomes possible when you stay patient, keep going, and trust that, in time, your efforts will bear fruit. The role of compassion in overcoming obstacles. When facing difficult times or impossible challenges, we often think of strength as something rigid, something that forces its way through obstacles. But in Buddhism, we learn that true strength doesn't always lie in brute force. Sometimes, the greatest power we possess is compassion. Compassion, often misunderstood as weakness, is actually one of the strongest forces in the universe. It is the ability to understand, to care, and to act with kindness, both toward others and ourselves. Imagine you are walking through a dense forest. The trees are tall, their branches thick, and the path is hard to find. It is easy to feel lost, confused, and even afraid. But what if, as you journey, you carry a light with you? A light that not only illuminates the way forward for you, but also for others you might meet along the path? This light is compassion. It does not only shine for your benefit but radiates outward, helping others navigate their own struggles. In this way, compassion becomes a tool that not only helps us move through our own difficulties but also allows us to uplift others. In Buddhism, compassion is not merely an emotion. It is a practice, something you cultivate day by day. It's about having the wisdom to see the suffering of others and offering help without expecting anything in return. This selfless act not only eases the suffering of others, but also deepens our own understanding of the world. When we show compassion, we begin to break the cycle of selfishness that often traps us. Instead of focusing on our own pain and limitations, we shift our attention to the well-being of others. And in doing so, we often find that our own burdens lighten. There is a story of a monk who was walking through a village when he saw a poor woman struggling to carry a heavy bundle of firewood. The monk, though tired from his own long journey, offered to help. The woman hesitated at first, but then agreed. As the monk took a portion of the firewood, the weight became much more bearable for her. The monk did not gain anything from this act of kindness. He was not seeking praise, nor did he expect anything in return. But as he helped her, he found that his own heart felt lighter. Compassion works in the same way. It doesn't require grand gestures or sacrifices. It can be as simple as a smile, a kind word, or a helping hand. These small acts can create ripples that spread far beyond the moment, touching lives in ways we may never fully understand. But what about when we face our own obstacles? When we are the ones struggling, can compassion really help us overcome our challenges? The answer is yes. In fact, compassion for ourselves is often the first step toward overcoming any difficulty. We live in a world that often teaches us to be hard on ourselves. We are told to push through pain, to be strong, and to never show weakness. But this approach can be damaging. It leads to burnout, frustration, and feelings of inadequacy. When we learn to be compassionate with ourselves, we begin to treat our challenges with patience and understanding. Instead of criticizing ourselves for our failures, we acknowledge them with kindness. We remind ourselves that it is okay to struggle, that it is okay to not have all the answers. Compassion helps us see that our imperfections are not flaws, they are part of the journey. Think of a flower. When a flower begins to bloom, it does not rush. It opens slowly, gently, allowing each petal to unfold in its own time. This is how we must approach our own growth. We must be patient with ourselves, understanding that overcoming obstacles is not a race. Each step, no matter how small, is part of the process. Compassion also allows us to be more mindful of our thoughts and emotions. When we face challenges, it's easy to become overwhelmed by negative feelings. We may feel frustration, anger, or fear. But with compassion, we learn to observe these emotions without judgment. Instead of letting them control us, we simply acknowledge them, understand where they come from, and let them pass. This practice of mindfulness, combined with compassion, helps us stay grounded, even in the most difficult moments. Another important aspect of compassion is its ability to dissolve the boundaries between us and others. When we help others, when we show them kindness and understanding, we are reminded of our shared humanity. We begin to see that everyone, no matter their background or circumstances, faces struggles. In this way, compassion becomes a bridge that connects us, not only to others, but to the very essence of life itself. This interconnectedness is one of the core teachings of Buddhism. The Buddha taught that all beings are connected, that we are not isolated individuals, but part of a larger whole. When we extend compassion to others, we are also extending it to ourselves. We begin to recognize that our well-being is deeply intertwined with the well-being of others. But how can we practice compassion in our everyday lives? It begins with simple actions. You don't need to make grand sacrifices. Start small. Acknowledge someone's pain. Offer a kind word to someone who is struggling. Listen, without judgment, to someone who needs to be heard. And, most importantly, be kind to yourself. In Buddhism, the practice of compassion is often tied to the idea of metta, or loving kindness. Metta is the wish for all beings to be happy and free from suffering. It's not limited to those we know or those who are close to us. It extends to all beings, even those we might find difficult or challenging. When we cultivate metta, we shift our mindset from one of separation to one of unity. We begin to see that the suffering of others is our suffering, and their joy is our joy. By practicing compassion, we become more resilient. We learn to approach obstacles with a calm and peaceful mind, knowing that they are just temporary. Compassion helps us face these challenges not with fear or resistance, but with acceptance and understanding. It allows us to move through life with grace, knowing that no matter what happens, we are never alone. In the end, compassion is the key that unlocks the door to overcoming the impossible. It is the force that transforms our weaknesses into strengths and our suffering into wisdom. When we approach life with compassion, both for ourselves and others, we are no longer limited by our obstacles. We become free to move forward, to grow, and to achieve things we never thought possible. So, next time you are faced with a challenge, whether big or small, remember this. Compassion is not a weakness, it is the greatest strength you can have. And by practicing it, you can overcome anything life throws your way, harnessing inner stillness for extraordinary achievements. To do the impossible, you must first master the art of stillness. This might sound simple, but in our busy lives, true stillness is one of the hardest things to achieve. In the chaos of our thoughts, the noise of the world, and the constant demands on our time, finding inner stillness can feel like an impossible task in itself. However, if you seek to achieve great things, stillness is your greatest ally. Just as a calm lake reflects the clearest image of the sky, a still mind reflects the clearest path to your goal. In Buddhism, this stillness is called zazen, which means seated meditation. But it's not just about sitting quietly for a few moments. It's about cultivating an inner peace that remains unshaken, no matter the turbulence outside. Think of a stone thrown into the water. At first, the water ripples violently, disturbed by the force. But over time, the ripples fade, and the water returns to its natural state of stillness. Our minds, like the water, are often thrown into disarray by the events of the world around us. Yet, through practice, we can return to a state of calm. This calmness isn't about ignoring the world. It's about observing it without letting it control you. It's about being in the world, but not being of the world. When we are still, we see things more clearly. We can make decisions with wisdom rather than reacting out of emotion or impulse. In moments of stillness, we gain access to a deeper layer of understanding and insight. Imagine a moment of pure stillness in your life. Perhaps it's during a quiet walk in nature, or in the calm before dawn. In that silence, your mind is free from distraction, and suddenly, solutions come to you that were impossible to see before. That's the power of inner stillness. When you cultivate it, you begin to tap into a reservoir of wisdom that resides within you, ready to guide you. But stillness is not something that happens overnight. It requires patience, practice, and discipline. Just like a tree grows slowly, from a small seed into a towering oak, the process of cultivating stillness takes time. At first, your mind may resist. It will be filled with thoughts, distractions, and worries. That's normal. The key is to not fight these thoughts, but to gently let them pass like clouds drifting across the sky. In Buddhism, the practice of mindfulness helps to cultivate stillness. It is the art of paying full attention to the present moment without judgment or distraction. By focusing on the breath, on a simple task, or even on the feeling of the ground beneath your feet, you begin to anchor yourself in the here and now. This mindfulness is the foundation for stillness. It teaches you to quiet the constant chatter of your mind, so that you can hear the wisdom that comes from within. The mind is like a noisy marketplace, filled with vendors shouting and people moving in every direction. But when you find a corner of that marketplace and sit quietly, you can see things more clearly. The noise doesn't disappear, but it no longer has power over you. You can focus on what truly matters and let go of the distractions. This is what inner stillness can do for you. It allows you to rise above the noise of your thoughts and the world around you, so you can focus on your purpose. When we talk about doing the impossible, stillness plays a key role in overcoming the obstacles that stand in our way. Every great achievement, whether in the realm of science, art, or personal transformation, begins with the stillness of the mind. The mind, when still, is open to new ideas, new solutions, and new perspectives. It is in stillness that the impossible becomes possible, because it is in stillness that we can truly listen to the wisdom of our heart. But stillness isn't just about achieving great things. It is also about finding peace in your life. The more stillness you cultivate, the less affected you are by the turbulence around you. Life will always have its ups and downs, its challenges and difficulties. But when you are still, you are not shaken by these external events. You remain grounded, like a tree with deep roots that cannot be uprooted by a storm. This is the true power of stillness. It gives you the ability to stand firm in the face of adversity, to rise above the chaos, and to move forward with clarity and confidence. It allows you to transform challenges into opportunities, to see solutions where others see problems, and to stay focused on your path, no matter how difficult the journey may seem. The journey to mastering stillness is not easy. It requires consistent effort and the willingness to embrace discomfort. The mind will always want to wander, to chase after distractions, to worry about the future or regret the past. But each time you bring your focus back to the present moment, each time you return to your breath, you are building your capacity for stillness. Over time, this stillness becomes more natural. It becomes a part of who you are. You will begin to carry it with you throughout your day, even in the busiest moments. It will help you respond to life with wisdom, rather than reacting out of fear or anxiety. The more you practice, the more you will realize that stillness is not just a tool for meditation. It is a way of life. When we approach the impossible, we often feel overwhelmed. We look at the task ahead of us and wonder how we can ever accomplish it. But in moments of stillness, we realize that there is no need to rush. The path may be long, but it is clear. Each step is guided by the wisdom that comes from within, and with every step, we get closer to our goal. The key to doing the impossible lies in this stillness. It is the foundation upon which everything else is built. Without it, we are like a ship without a rudder, drifting aimlessly in a storm. But with stillness, we have direction. We have clarity. We have purpose. So, take a moment today to find stillness in your life. It doesn't have to be for long, just a few minutes of quiet reflection. Sit in silence, breathe deeply, and let go of the worries that cloud your mind. In that stillness, you will find the strength, the clarity, and the wisdom to do the impossible. When you are still, you are not just finding peace. You are unlocking the potential within you. The impossible becomes possible, not because you are changing the world, but because you are changing yourself. And as you change, the world around you changes as well, transforming fear into courage and action. Fear is an invisible barrier that holds many of us back. It whispers in our ears, telling us that we are not enough, that we are unworthy of success, or that we are destined to fail. It creeps in, unnoticed, and takes root in our hearts, slowly growing until it feels as if it controls our every move. But fear, in its essence, is just a shadow. And like all shadows, it cannot exist without light. Today, we will learn how to transform that shadow of fear into the bright light of courage and action. In the world of Buddhism, fear is not something to be defeated, but something to be understood. Fear arises from our attachments, from our desires for things to remain as they are, from our longing to avoid discomfort or pain. We fear change, because change means leaving behind the known and stepping into the unknown. Yet, it is only in the unknown that we can truly grow. Think of a bird, perched on the edge of a cliff, staring down at the vast expanse below. The bird feels the wind tugging at its wings, but it hesitates. There is fear, a deep fear of the unknown, of the free fall. But when the bird finally lets go, it soars. It realizes that the very thing it feared, the unknown, is where its true power lies. Just like that bird, we must learn to let go. Fear will always be a part of our journey, but it does not have to stop us. When we face our fears, we give them less power. The more we resist fear, the stronger it becomes. But when we acknowledge it, understand it, and choose to act despite it, we break free. This doesn't mean that courage is the absence of fear. Courage is not about ignoring fear or pretending it doesn't exist. It's about feeling fear and doing what we must do anyway. A warrior does not fear battle, but still, there is a moment of uncertainty before the fight. The warrior's courage comes from their willingness to face that fear head-on, knowing that each step forward is a step closer to the truth of who they are. The Buddha once said, "The only thing we have to fear is fear itself." This might sound simple, but in those few words lies the key to transforming our fears into actions. Fear is not a force of nature. It is a creation of the mind. The mind constructs fears based on past experiences, conditioning, and stories we tell ourselves. But the mind is not an authority on the future. The future has not yet arrived. Therefore, the fears we hold about it are merely possibilities, not guarantees. So how do we transform fear into courage and action? First, we must learn to observe our fears without judgment. Buddhism teaches us mindfulness, the ability to be fully present in the moment without clinging to the past or projecting into the future. When we are mindful, we can see fear for what it truly is, a fleeting thought, an emotional reaction, not a permanent state of being. Once we observe fear, we can choose how to respond to it. Fear often comes with an intense physical reaction, the tightening of the chest, a quickened heartbeat, shallow breathing. These are signs that our body is preparing to flee or fight. But what if we paused in that moment instead of reacting? What if we took a deep breath, acknowledged the fear, and chose to move forward with calmness instead of panic? This practice of pausing and breathing is called mindful action. It is the art of responding to fear with calm and clarity, of stepping forward with a clear mind, knowing that fear does not define us. In fact, fear can become a source of strength when we stop allowing it to control us. With every small action we take, despite our fear, we build courage. With every step forward, we train our minds to know that fear is just a passing cloud, not a permanent storm. To transform fear into courage, we also need to practice letting go of the outcome. Often, our fear comes from the unknown outcome. We worry about what will happen if we fail, if we're not good enough, if we don't succeed. But in Buddhism, we are taught to detach from the need for specific outcomes. The practice of detachment does not mean that we don't care about the results. It means that we free ourselves from the anxiety of needing things to turn out a certain way. We learn to embrace whatever happens with grace and understanding. By letting go of attachment to the outcome, we free ourselves from the weight of fear. Instead of focusing on what might go wrong, we focus on the action itself. We focus on the process, on the present moment, and on doing our best in each step we take. In this way, the fear loses its grip on us, and courage begins to rise from within. Let's take the example of a person who is afraid to speak in front of an audience. The fear of judgment, of making a mistake, or of being rejected can feel paralyzing. But instead of letting fear control them, they can practice mindfulness. They take a moment before stepping on stage, breathing deeply and observing their fear without judgment. They realize that fear is simply a sensation, not a truth. Then, they choose to act. They step forward, not because they have no fear, but because they understand that fear is just a feeling, not a fact. With each word they speak, the fear begins to dissipate. The more they speak, the more courage they build. And over time, what was once an overwhelming fear becomes a tool for growth, a catalyst for their own transformation. This is the power of courage. It's not about eliminating fear, but about moving through it. It's about acting with mindfulness, understanding that fear is not an enemy to be defeated, but a teacher to be embraced. Fear teaches us what we are capable of when we choose to act despite it. As we move forward in life, we will encounter many more fears. But with each fear we face, we gain more confidence in our ability to handle whatever comes our way. We build resilience. We build strength. We build courage. And with that courage, we unlock the door to action. In the end, fear does not control us unless we allow it. We have the power to choose how we respond. And with that choice, we can transform our fears into the fuel that drives us to do the impossible. Every time we act despite fear, we prove to ourselves that we are capable of far more than we ever imagined. Fear becomes a stepping stone, not a stumbling block. So, let fear be your teacher. Let it guide you, not hold you back. And in doing so, you will find the courage to take the actions that lead to greatness. Every journey toward the impossible begins with the decision to act despite fear. With each step you take, you move closer to the realization that fear is not a barrier. It is the key to your transformation. Finding clarity amid chaos and doubts. In the chaos of life, there is often a deep longing for clarity, a desire to find peace in the midst of turmoil. In the Zen way, we know that clarity is not something that can be forced or rushed. It is like the calm after a storm, the moment when the dust settles and you can see clearly again. But how do we find that clarity when doubts, fears, and distractions surround us? Let us begin by observing a simple truth. Our minds are often like a turbulent river, constantly rushing with thoughts and emotions. These thoughts swirl around, creating waves that blur our vision and make it difficult to see what lies beneath. We are pulled into the current, swept along by the flow of anxiety, worry, and confusion. But just as a river can be calm if we allow it to settle, so too can our minds. When we stop struggling against the current, when we allow ourselves to simply be present, we find that clarity begins to emerge. It's like looking into a still pond. At first, the water is murky, disturbed by our movements. But as we sit quietly, the water clears, and the reflection becomes crisp and sharp. The same is true of our minds. To find clarity in the chaos, we must first learn to sit still. In Zen, this is called zazen, or seated meditation. It is not about achieving a particular state of mind, but simply being present with whatever arises, without judgment or attachment. The more we sit in stillness, the more we begin to see things as they truly are, without the distortion of our opinions or fears. Imagine you are sitting by a stream, watching the water flow by. At first, the water seems murky, filled with leaves and debris. You may feel frustrated, thinking that the water will never be clear. But as time passes, you notice that the debris slowly floats away, and the water begins to clear. This is the nature of our minds. When we allow ourselves to sit quietly, our thoughts and worries begin to settle, and clarity arises naturally. But stillness is not the only way to find clarity. In Zen, there is also the practice of mindful action. This means being fully present in whatever we do, whether it is washing dishes, walking, or even working. When we bring our full attention to the task at hand, the noise in our minds quiets down, and we are able to focus with clarity. The more we practice this, the more we begin to see the world as it truly is, without the filter of our distractions or preconceptions. The key is to focus on the present moment, rather than allowing ourselves to be lost in the past or future. Our doubts often arise from worry about what has happened or what might happen. We fear the unknown, and this fear clouds our judgment. But when we bring our attention to the present, we realize that the future has not yet arrived, and the past is gone. All that exists is the now. In the present moment, there is always clarity. When we stop projecting our thoughts into the future or dwelling on the past, we find that our minds become still. In that stillness, we can see clearly, and the answer to our doubts often becomes obvious. Another way to find clarity in the midst of chaos is by embracing impermanence. In Buddhism, we understand that everything is in constant flux. The storm will pass, the waves will calm, and the sun will rise again. Nothing lasts forever. Not our difficulties, not our fears, and not our doubts. When we accept this truth, we stop clinging to the illusion of permanence, and we are free to let go of our attachment to the chaos around us. Impermanence teaches us that even our doubts are temporary. They arise and pass away, just like the thoughts that swirl in our minds. By acknowledging this, we can stop identifying with our doubts and fears, allowing them to come and go without clinging to them. As we do this, our minds become lighter, and the clarity that was always there becomes more apparent. Let us also consider the power of simplicity in finding clarity. In our busy lives, we often fill our time with endless tasks, distractions, and obligations. We believe that by doing more, we will find fulfillment. But the truth is, simplicity is often the key to clarity. When we simplify our lives, when we remove unnecessary distractions, we make space for clarity to arise. Think of the way a garden flourishes when weeds are removed. By clearing away the clutter, the flowers and plants can grow freely. In the same way, when we remove the clutter from our minds, our worries, our distractions, our attachments, we create the space for clarity to blossom. Simplicity also helps us focus on what truly matters. When our lives are filled with noise and distractions, it becomes easy to lose sight of our true purpose. But by simplifying our routines, our goals, and our desires, we can direct our energy towards what is most important. In this focused state, clarity naturally emerges. There is another practice in Zen that helps us find clarity, the practice of non-attachment. In Buddhism, attachment is seen as the root of suffering. We attach ourselves to ideas, beliefs, people, and outcomes. And when these things change or disappear, we experience pain and confusion. But when we practice non-attachment, we release our hold on these things, allowing ourselves to flow with the changes of life. Non-attachment does not mean indifference. It simply means that we no longer rely on external circumstances for our sense of peace. We find clarity by letting go of the need to control or possess things. We allow life to unfold naturally, without trying to force outcomes or cling to the way things should be. When we practice non-attachment, we are free to experience life as it is, without the distortion of our desires or expectations. Non-attachment also means releasing our attachment to our own thoughts. We often identify with our thoughts, believing that they define us. But in Zen, we learn that thoughts are like clouds passing through the sky. They come and go, but they do not define the sky itself. Our minds are the same. When we let go of our attachment to thoughts, we see them for what they are, temporary and fleeting. In this way, clarity arises, as we no longer see ourselves through the lens of our thoughts. To summarize, finding clarity amid chaos and doubts requires a combination of stillness, mindfulness, acceptance of impermanence, simplicity, and non-attachment. It is through these practices that we can begin to see beyond the fog of our doubts and fears and recognize the truth that lies beneath. The path to clarity is not about forcing the mind into a particular state. It is about allowing the mind to settle naturally, like the stillness after a storm. As you continue on your journey, Remember that clarity is always available to you, even in the most chaotic moments. It is within you, waiting to be uncovered. When you practice stillness, when you focus on the present moment, when you embrace impermanence, you will find that clarity is not something to be sought. It is something to be realized. The more you practice, the more you will see that the answers you seek were always there, waiting for you to notice. Now, take a moment to breathe. Let go of any doubts, any fears, and any distractions. Allow yourself to be fully present and see what comes into focus, becoming the embodiment of the impossible. As we reach the final part of this journey together, we stand at a pivotal moment. The teachings we've explored, the wisdom we've shared, and the steps we've taken have all led us to this point. The realization that you can become the embodiment of the impossible. But what does it mean to truly embody the impossible? To understand this, we must first recognize that the impossible is not something out there, waiting for us to conquer it. The impossible is something that exists within us, something we must awaken, nurture, and allow to unfold. It is not about doing things that others deem impossible. It is about realizing that the very essence of your being is capable of far more than you think. When we speak of the impossible, we often think of grand feats, the impossible climbs, the unattainable goals. But true transformation is not about achieving something extraordinary in the eyes of the world. It is about breaking free from the limitations we place on ourselves and understanding the infinite potential within. Look at the lotus flower. It grows from the mud, yet it rises above, untouched by the muck that surrounds it. In the same way, you too can rise above the challenges that seem to hold you back. Every obstacle is an opportunity for growth. Every doubt is a chance to deepen your understanding. The impossible is not a barrier. It is the doorway to the next step on your journey. The first step in becoming the embodiment of the impossible is to release the grip of fear. Fear is the illusion that keeps us from taking action. It whispers in our ears, telling us that we cannot, that we should not, that it is too hard. But fear is only a shadow, temporary and fleeting. When you confront fear with calm, steady presence, it dissolves like morning mist in the light of the sun. Buddhism teaches us that we are not defined by our fears or by our past. We are not limited by our mistakes or our failures. What defines us is our ability to rise, to begin anew with each breath, and to continue moving forward with an open heart. This is the essence of the impossible. It is not something to be achieved in a single moment, but something to be embodied with every step. To embody the impossible, you must also embrace impermanence. Everything is in a constant state of change. The challenges you face today will not last forever. The obstacles that seem insurmountable will eventually give way to new opportunities. Nothing is permanent, not even your doubts or fears. Understanding this allows you to move through life with fluidity and ease, knowing that no matter how impossible something may seem, it is not permanent. Change is inevitable, and with each change, you have the opportunity to grow. Mindfulness is another key to becoming the embodiment of the impossible. When you are fully present in the moment, when you focus your energy on what is before you, the weight of the impossible begins to fade. In every task, no matter how small, there is an opportunity to practice mindfulness. Whether you are walking, eating, or working, bring your full awareness to the task at hand. This presence allows you to step beyond limitations and experience the world as it truly is, vast, open, and full of possibility. The impossible becomes possible when you stop looking at it as something distant or unattainable. Instead, break it down into small, manageable steps. What is impossible today might become achievable tomorrow, not because the impossible has changed, but because you have grown. With each step you take, you become stronger, more capable, and more aligned with the truth of your own potential. To embody the impossible is to be courageous in the face of uncertainty. It is not the absence of fear or doubt, but the willingness to move forward in spite of them. The great masters of Buddhism did not live lives free of challenges. They faced adversity, hardship, and suffering, yet they continued to walk their path with grace. They embodied the impossible by trusting in their own inner wisdom and in the boundless potential of the human spirit. Patience plays an important role as well. Becoming the embodiment of the impossible does not happen overnight. It is a process, a journey that unfolds gradually, step by step. There will be moments of frustration, moments when progress feels slow, and moments when the path ahead seems unclear. But trust that each step, no matter how small, is leading you closer to your goal. Patience is the practice of trusting in the process, knowing that every effort is building towards something greater. Compassion is also crucial. Compassion for yourself, for your struggles, and for the people around you. The impossible is not something to be conquered alone. It is a shared experience. When you are kind and compassionate toward yourself, you allow the space for growth. When you extend that same kindness to others, you create a community of support, lifting one another up and encouraging each other to reach new heights. To truly embody the impossible, you must also trust in the process of life. The road will not always be clear, and the destination will not always be what you expect. But each twist, turn, and detour is an opportunity to learn, to adapt, and to grow. Trust that life, in all its unpredictability, is guiding you toward what you need, not always what you want. The impossible is often just the unknown, waiting for you to step into it with an open heart and mind. As we come to the end of this series, remember that you are not separate from the impossible. You are it. The impossible is not something to strive for. It is something to become. With every breath, with every thought, and with every action, you are shaping your reality. You are creating a life that aligns with your highest potential, a life where the impossible becomes not just possible, but inevitable. Thank you for being a part of this journey. As you continue on your path, know that the wisdom of Buddhism will always be there to guide you. Keep walking, keep believing, and keep embodying the impossible. For in the end, the only limits that exist are the ones you place on yourself. The world is vast, your potential limitless, and the impossible is yours to create. If this journey has resonated with you, and if you found value in these teachings, don't forget to like, comment, share, and subscribe to Wisdom Woven. Together, we can continue to explore the boundless wisdom that helps us rise, grow, and achieve what once seemed impossible.